Welcome back. This is just a little video of outtakes. I was just checking and mucking about with the approach and departure angle, and these were some good obstacles I come up with to really test them out. You can see here it's really pushing on the approach, coming out the other side of this creek bed, and you'll see once I get through the other side that it's right at the edge of being at the maximum of the departure as well. These sort of steep in, steep outs really test the length of the vehicle, your approach and departure. And Discovery done that pretty good. As most people would know, like if you had a tray back, or a twin cab with a tray or something like that, you'd be hung up there on the back. Most of the early twin cab trays and that weren't too bad on their approach, but in the last 4 or 5 years, all these twin cabs have got all the critical gear way out in front of the vehicle. It's quite bizarre, but obviously the companies know they're not being used for off-road, and that's why they're doing it. But for anyone that is using them off-road, it's some quite critical gear out the front there. You wouldn't really want to go charging anything real hard or have to come off something hard. But you can see here, even with a really good approach angle on the Disco, it's struggling to push up onto this. It spends a lot of time. This is one of the things about when I've done the bar work on this vehicle. The bar work on this vehicle really add to the capability, because of the bar work, I'm able to really push up on things and drop off things without worrying about tearing the front and back of the car to pieces. But you can see here it's testing out again. What's happened here is I'm stuck on some pretty hard rocky ground on the tow bar, and that's what's caught me up on the departure here. But it actually snagged me, so I'm definitely stuck here. You'll see I'll get out and suss out the situation, but it's stuck. It's only digging from here on. I tried all different ways before I got the shovel out, but there was really no way out of it. I threw a few rocks in front and back, but it's really soft ground. So that was pretty pointless. Oh, that's right. There was a bit of an old tree root in it, sort of catching me up as well. Could be worse. I could be stuck on the couch watching the footy. I've conceded. I've passed the point of no return, and the winch is out. It's always the last thing that I do, but there was a lot of digging to be done to get myself off where that tow bar was hooked. So out come the winch. You can see it was sat right up on it. It was, no way she was coming off easy. Well, all it needed was just a little move forward on the winch, probably only about 100, 200 mil, and it just come straight off it. Had a couple come past and stop, and just to see if everything was all right. I think they thought I'd run off the road to start with. But as I explained to them, I was just down there doing a bit of mucking around, testing the approach and departure. You can see there from that overhead now how well that creek bed is laid out for really testing a vehicle out. Sometimes things don't look like they're too extreme, and you'll see when I get onto this next area where I go around over here, but there's some areas in here that will stop most four-wheel drives, and including ones that are, modified with big tyres and that as well. It's just because it comes to the limit of their size and their weight, whether they're able to pull out of or get into those situations. And it really doesn't matter how much you spend on your four-wheel drive, there's always going to be something that stops you. And these couple of obstacles, this one here, the dry creek bed, and the next one over the other side, there's a couple of obstacles that, very, very tricky, even though they don't look it. That's why you'll always have small, light, agile vehicles like the, Suzuki's or the Discovery One that'll outdrive even heavily modified vehicles in certain situations, just purely because of their size and weight and nothing else. It doesn't matter how much gear you've got in your vehicle. If it's too big and too heavy, it'll stop you more than anything else. We've got some articulation and some wheels off the ground here. There'll be many spots through this video where I'm mucking about in these creek beds where you'll see the bonus of having a really good rear bar, because you touch feel on your way. See, I just slammed the bank there, and without a decent rear bar, you're doing damage to the panels, that's for sure. More than anything else, it just gives you the peace of mind that you can roll back and slam something pretty hard, or there's a lot of times when you're rolling back where you haven't got a great deal of control. But when you slam into a bank or something backwards, you're not going to be stoving all your panels in, if you've got a good decent rear bar. And you can see there on the corner edges where it comes down the side as well, I can just rub up against and roll down beside banks without it tearing the side out of the car as well. You can see here I'm just mucking about, just trying to find different angles to try and stop it. But that soft ground gets me in the end. It's really, really soft here. It's just been, probably gets graded 2 or 3 times a year. So this bit on the edge here is just really soft, graded gravel. So with the steep jump up out of the creek bed, it just pulls you up. I'll just add a little bit of momentum there just to kick it off. And here we are over at the second creek bed, and this jump up out of here. Now this is a real test of this one. It tests four-wheel drives because it's got a really steep breakover angle, but where it gets you is that the departure angle, because it's got an incline because it's coming up out of the creek bed on the road, and that incline, as you're coming up onto this obstacle, grabs the back of the car on the departure angle, and you'll see when the camera pans around to a better angle. I just can't remember, am I stuck here or not? I think I'm already on the tow bar here. I'm just mucking around and going forward and back just to loosen myself up, do a bit of grading with the tow bar and get off it because I'm hooked up. But again, in a tray or something with a really long departure angle, I'm hooked up. See, the bar's got me caught at the back. So I do a bit of grading to get off here, a bit of backwards and forwards. But something with a tray or a long departure angle, you'd never get onto this obstacle. So it's a really good obstacle to come around at different angles and to see what your car is capable of. I'm pretty impressed. Like I've driven past this thing a lot of times, and I've always said I'm going to drive up that because and I've said it to people that've been with me and they've gone, yeah, right. But I eventually got around to doing it, but I just had that much faith in the Discovery that I could put it up against it. This is very steep. It's you can't see it from this camera angle, unfortunately. It's pretty hard to pick it up, but it's pretty steep. Even there, you sort of see a bit of how steep it is, but it's a big jump up. You see the tow bar digging in there. Again, this is where you've got to have that good bar and all that, where you're not worried about really pushing into it. See, I could grade that and jump out of it, and then I'd be slamming up against the wall on the other side pretty quick. So you sort of got to be careful. But what's happening here is because that breakover is so steep at the top, it's catching even the Discovery up with a 100-inch wheelbase, which is, an exceptional wheelbase. It's very, very capable off-road. Like bigger cars, let's say something like a Patrol or an 80 series or something in that size, like the big full-size cars, there's no way with a 2-inch lift and a one locker like I've got here, they'd even get onto this obstacle, let alone break over it. So it is quite a good test. You can see there the bar it's slamming down on the bar, and this is where I was saying before about the cars, all the new cars now having all their critical gear out in the front. Obstacles like this would destroy them, sadly. That's why a lot of people are going to an old classic four-wheel drive to do some serious four-wheel drive, and they've just become too fragile, all these new four-wheel drives. I could never imagine ever taking something like a 200 series Cruiser or something anywhere off-road. I mean, I know people do, but they don't like not serious off-road, but they're just too fragile. Too many things to go wrong. And what videos you do see of them off-road, they're always breaking CVs or stuff because of the way the angles, the independent suspension and that are on. Whereas this old bus, it was just made to do it. It's in its DNA. You can see there I'm just mucking about doing whatever, and it's just doing it with ease. I don't have to worry about breaking anything. I can push it up or drive it up on anything without too much stress and just try things out. Whereas you're in all these really new modern four-wheel drives, they're great on the road, don't get me wrong, and most people drive them on the road, that's why they're making them like that. But when you get off-road, anything like this, you start breaking stuff. And you can see I'm just easing into it here with the Discovery. I'm not, going rushing into it, doing some pretty big drop-offs back onto the bar, but I know how strong that is. But I'm not, slamming the car and really destroying it, trying to get over the obstacle. I'm just trying to ease it over the best I can. And it's not that I hate. I'm nearly over here. That was a pain. I was so close to being over, but as you can see, this is an old. So the whole wall of this is an old creek bed. You see, they're all creek bed stones there, and it's very, very loosely packed. It's another one of the parts of why this is such a great obstacle. Not only got this big steep climb and jump up, the traction you've got is really, really loosely packed stones, which gives you very little traction. So if you can get a car over this, it really shows how good the vehicle is. Now, something like a Suzuki with the ground as soft as what it is will fare better than the Disco because it's lighter, and it less chance of it ripping the wall out and struggling. So in the same way as the Disco is going to be heaps better than a bigger car like an 80 series or a Patrol because it's so much heavier. But where the Suzuki gets into trouble, and this is why the Discoveries and the Range Rover Classic I think are the greatest four-wheel drives of all time. There's something about a 100-inch wheelbase that seems to be the perfect measurement for balance on getting on and over things. the Suzuki is just so great in so many spots. Grew up around Suzukis and, four-wheel drive Suzukis and all that sort of stuff. They're really, really great. And straight up and down here, the only problem is this is so steep. If you jumped off one of those edges and you're halfway up, Suzuki would roll over backwards and you'd be on your lid straight away. And you can forget trying to go up on any angle. It's straight up and down with a Suzuki or you will be over. As great a vehicle as they are off-road, anything technical, they're not real good. Well, they're all right as long as you're able to push the car back on its wheels. But they are, because of their size, they go really well. But the Discovery and the Range Rover Classic, this is where they're just so good. That 100-inch wheelbase, perfect approach and departure angle. And that just works in so many situations. And obviously, if I put a set of 35s under this thing, I would have already driven over the obstacle. The only thing that's stopping us from going up there now is it's just hitting in the middle. There's something just catching in the middle, and it's only whatever it is not much. Like, it's not hooking on the handbrake drum, because Land Rover's being a full drive company, all the drivetrain is tucked up between the chassis rails, unlike all the other car type four-wheel drives where a lot of the drivetrain hangs down below the chassis rails. So I'm landing on the chassis there somewhere, but whatever's happening is I'm feeling it pivot, like say the car's sitting on a needle head. I'm feeling it rock and roll and pivot when I get caught on whatever it is. But you can see here, I've well and truly stuck myself now. The tow bar's dug right in, and there's no going back at this stage. But you can see there, that breakover. That's the sort of thing that turns the big family wagons like the Patrol and 80 series and 100 series and that's what turns them into seesaws. They're a lot longer in the wheelbase. The Discovery's got a lot of better chance of getting over this because of that breakover angle. The big Cruisers and Patrols, they're another 20 inches or something, 30 inches in the wheelbase, which is a heap over a breakover. Anyway, we still keep mucking about here, but it's really good in an enjoying challenge, and I wasn't even going to put this up, but it's probably good for other people to watch it, and they may get something out of it as well. But you really, it's something like this, you can muck around on it and in pretty safe sort of conditions, and test your vehicle and yourself before you head out to something in the high country and have to test it out on the side of a slope when you're in trouble, and then be trying to work it all out on the run. You can see how stuck I am on that tow bar on the run back. This is definitely pulling her up when we hit that tow bar. But one of the things I really enjoy about this old Disco is, I've mentioned it before, because it owes me about 10 grand the way it is. Well, it's under 10 grand the way it is, but I get a lot of enjoyment. It's just no front locker in it, and it's running on road bias all-terrains. You can see those, they're just like road tyres. And being able to pull off these sort of obstacles is really enjoyable. I'm off it now. I've managed to rip a big hole in the road and get over there. Now I'll be touch parking it against that bank over the other side. But just being able to have a go at things, and serious obstacles. This is a serious obstacle, even though it mightn't look like it, and be attacking it on these road bias tyres and only one diff lock is quite enjoyable. It's really a test for how good a four-wheel drive is. I mean, the more you add to four-wheel drives, and the more the more diff locks and the bigger, more aggressive tyres and all that sort of stuff, it just makes it easier and easier and easier. And sort of you get to the stage where you could modify something that much, anything could be a reasonable four-wheel drive off-road. But when they're pretty standard like this, Only really standout type four-wheel drives will do well in these situations. The other thing I just remembered then about this obstacle that's a real tester, and most of the bigger four-wheel drives, even if they could get up on it, would be in trouble because the fence is just at the other side. So the Discovery, if I get the Discovery up there, I don't think there's any room to turn it around. So it's definitely an obstacle. The fence is going to sort things out, that's for sure. I have to come up in a bit of an angle. If I go up too straight, I'm just going to have to reverse back down it because there's no way to get around that fence. So it gives you an idea of the height here. And you can see how sharp that breakover is here. And you can see that departure where how low that bar is on the driver's side corner of the ground just before I go up. That right there will stop probably 80% of four-wheel drives because Discovery's got a pretty bloody good departure angle on it. And ones with longer ones will definitely not be going up it because we're on the limit of the Discovery one here. You know, many times over probably the last 10 years, I've thought to myself, it was just one of those, flukes like all the four Beatles hooking up and, all those sort of things. Whereas how the Camel Trophy and Land Rover got together to do the Camel Trophy, and the Discovery one was being launched and it was going to be the main player in the Camel Trophy. It was a bit like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all the people getting together and just being perfect, because I don't know any other four-wheel drive because those Camel cars, they were unlocked. They were standard cars, and I don't know any other four-wheel drives that could have ever have done what they done in the Camel Trophy. If you know anything about off-road or you've been off-road, they really are a great vehicle. And because they're so basic as well, especially this is a poverty pack, so it's got no options whatsoever. There's very little to go wrong, especially with that direction TDI. They're just bulletproof reliable. I just changed the oil. I've probably done, this has got 600,000 Ks on it, and I've probably done 60,000 Ks on it and just changed oil. I haven't put anything near it. That's how good they are. You do hear a lot of stories about fantasy reliability, but that's real reliability, and this is what it does all the time. It's not like this thing's wrapped in cotton wool, and it's just running on the road getting those sort of Ks. It's doing this and getting those sort of Ks. I've been doing a few Instagram reels lately and bringing to the attention of some of the bigger four-wheel drive owners that go on about how reliable their cars are, that the Discovery is more reliable than all the fantasy reliability vehicles off-road, and obviously there's a few people getting upset. But the reason that I say that is because you just seen how easy that Discovery just walks up that. Now, that's not walks up it easy twin locked with 37 traps. That's walks up it with road tyres on it and one locker with ease. And that's what makes them so reliable off-road. You know, there's a lot of people getting a little bit upset on the internet when I say to them that, and you've only got to check out YouTube pages, all that. And the number one cars broken down is the big fellas in the big cars, because they've got to push the cars so hard because of their size and weight over the obstacles. They've got to use momentum in that they spend far more time broken than any old Land Rover. Land Rover can just ease up to things and just cruise over them with ease. And that's why they're so reliable off-road. I'm doing tracks in this and by myself, and I'm driving home, nothing broken, and not even pulling the winch out. And that makes them reliable. I don't have to run at the obstacles flat out. And that's the biggest issue. And that's, that all comes from Land Rover's heritage of just doing so many military contracts and, emergency services and building real serious off-road four-wheel drives from the extreme four-wheel drive end of things. That their vehicles just are so capable. And I'm not just Land Rover. The Jeeps is exactly the same thing. Again, they're a four-wheel drive company. A Jeep can just ease over things. It's their size and weight, and again, like the G-Wagon, another vehicle designed for militaries, and that's what it was designed for first and foremost, was the militaries, and it's a very, very capable vehicle as well. Okay, we've moved into a second part here. There's about a month in between the filming here. We've just moved into the second part. This was just the other day. And I've admitted defeat here. I'm just looking for what is catching me. What is catching me on that pivot? It's not the whole breakover. Something's catching me in the middle, but I couldn't see what it was. So I sort of just dug around where I thought it was. And just took a little bit out first to see if we could just pop up over it without going too crazy. What's mildly amusing about looking at this shot here is that when I park in car parks beside all these new modern four-wheel drives, my Discovery doesn't come up to past their back door. And how many of these new modern four-wheel drives could fit into where I am right now? That's just something that's just dawned on me there. Like, I'm at the limit at the back, and I'm getting right at the front there for the approach and departure. And to get into there, mate, not many of these new modern four-wheel drives would. They're all too big now. I've just dropped the ripper on the dozer. I'm ripping backwards and forwards with the tow bar because of how steep the jump up is. I don't think there's any doubt that it's a workhorse and not a show pony, the old Disco. Whatever it was, wherever I was digging, must have been in the right spot. So I just got to give it another couple of hits, because it seemed to free it up a bit. I seemed to be rolling around on whatever it was. It's right on the limit of breakover, and because this is so sharp as the jet breaks over, it's only just a little bit of ground that's stopping me. And you can see here the years of experience. When I was 20, I just would have hit that flat. Yeah, and you spend a lot of time emptying your wallet out like that too. Always better to just take it easy. And that's it, discovery's up. It was really enjoyable getting the old girl up there. It was a good bit of work. There's a lot of satisfaction in knowing that there's not many other vehicles would come up there as standard as what old disco is, on the same tyres and one diff lock. And that's a good part of the enjoyment. I actually think now it's more enjoyable having them, run 36-inch tyres for 20 odd years, even on my everyday vehicles, and twin locked and supercharged, and it was just full on. Having run all those vehicles for decades, I reckon I get more enjoyment of getting this old disco up there, the way it is, than I ever did having all the gear. And it's the number one reason why I'm doing this for the YouTube channel. It really shows you how good a four-wheel drive is, being able to get up there with very little.